we will first have a chat with Dan from ChainGuard. Welcome to the stream.
Boom.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining. Congratulations on the hefty $356 million Series D. We'd love for you to introduce yourself, break it down, give us the news, tell us what's up.
Oh man, I was just on my roof 10 minutes ago trying to get my Starlink to work because my internet was down for 2 hours and it came back on 5 minutes before this. So I'm so happy to be here.
Well, it's a miracle. It's meant to be.
Yeah, perfect
where
timing.
are you right now?
Yeah. Are you off
I'm
grid?
in my basement in Rhode Island.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Awesome. Yeah, we're an all remote company.
Cool.
Yeah, we're about 3.5 years old at ChainGuard. We got started during the pandemic, so there were no offices, and we've kept it that way as we've grown. But we're building a safe source for open source software.
Cool.
Open source is this kind of like hippie software movement that's been around for like 30 or 40 years, but it's like anyone writes code and puts it on the internet for free, and people use it, and everyone kind of gives back and trusts it, and it mostly works. It's awesome. It's like 90 to 98% of the code that people use when they're writing, their own applications. But when you're using code that's written by anyone on the internet, it turns out not everyone on the internet is a nice or responsible person.
Yeah.
And that leads to security issues. And
What was the single?
I was about to say, what's the inciting story? Is it SolarWinds? What do you go back to as like the foundational story that we will be able to prevent in the future?
Yeah, SolarWinds was like one of those eye-opening moments.
Sure.
It's something I've been paranoid about for a while, though. There's actually this paper that was like written in the 70s by Ken Thompson called Reflections on Trusting Trust. And it was like a Turing Award-winning paper. Like it was his paper after he won an award. And he kind of proved by pranking all of his coworkers at Bell Labs that if like there's a backdoor in a compiler is the thing that turns source code into like, the thing you're actually going to run, then you can't really trust any of the programs that are ever built with that or any of the things that are built with those things. And it's an awesome paper. And then everyone just kind of blocked this out for like the next 40 or 50 years until SolarWinds happened, basically, where somebody actually spent the time and did something like that and then had dramatic consequences as a result to all of those kind of downstream customers. But my co-founders and I have been working on this stuff for a while at Google, and SolarWinds was kind of the kickstart to actually get this company going.
Got it. So talk to me about, the ramp on this company is crazy. What was the first customer? What was the go-to-market? How did you scale?
Yeah.
I wanted to hear all that.
Yeah, we spent a while in the beginning trying to figure out what we wanted to do from a product side. Right?
Yeah.
Software supply chain security, open source security, it's a whole bunch of problems. It's not just one problem. And it took a while to figure out which one people actually wanted to solve first. It was this topic everybody knew about after SolarWinds. There was an executive order from the Biden administration, that kind of thing. But nobody was really ready to take action yet. They were all just paying attention to and learning about the space. So we tried a bunch of different things. But this product that we have now, our ChainGuard Images product, we started on it pretty early, and it took a while to get going because there was a lot of software that we had to build to get to this point where people could come to us and get whatever they wanted to run from us. We first started selling it like, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to hear, finish that story and then I'll ask the next question about,
Yeah, we really first started selling it about halfway through calendar year 2023. We got the first couple of customers on board. We had a couple sales reps at the time. They reported directly to me. After it really started selling, though, and we had a feeling it was reatable, we brought in a VP of sales.
Yep.
Really started to scale that, but we've kind of been perpetually behind on growing our sales team as a result. The demand has been just, more than we can handle.
Seems like you're doing great.
Talk about. I want to ask you more potentially just fun question, not so serious. Talk about the brand. I think if you said 20 years ago that like a security software company would have such a fun, delightful brand, they would have kind of laughed at you. Is it just an extension of the team and your guys' internal culture, or how did that come together? And what's been the customer response to that? Because I imagine you're like at this point, many of your customers are not just cool ex-native startups. They're really scaled enterprises.
Yeah, I think it's a reflection of, in some ways, our internal culture. Right? Like security is really serious work. It's the type of security we do is really tedious work. It can be boring. It can be hard stuff nobody really wants to do, and we try to keep it fun. One of our core values is we do serious work, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. And we spend a lot of time on that one. We have fun in all hands. We do crazy stuff, summits, that kind of thing, and it helps keep the culture light. When you're about to go spend 8 hours trying to fix some tiny bug somewhere in some piece of software you don't understand, it helps to laugh every once in a while. That it keeps everybody engaged, keeps everybody having a good time, especially when things get tough. And we try to reflect that in our social media and our branding and the events and all of that stuff we do.
Yeah.
I get cold called all the time. There's all these brands out there, and like just some personality and authenticity really goes a long way in this.
Totally. What are the general risks in cybersecurity risks around software that kind of like keep you up at night that aren't related to ChainGuard directly and what you guys are doing? So kind of like more at a macro level.
I mean, this one's sort of related to us, but it really is the one that keeps me up at night. But we don't have a perfect solution to it either, so I don't feel too unfair. But it's the XZUtils attack at the start of last year, if you remember that one.
Yeah.
I think that's the one that probably should be keeping the entire industry up at night. It was this piece of open source software that had been around for like 30 years. It's this compression library that's used everywhere across the internet. As you upload, download things, it all gets compressed and decompressed, just like from Silicon Valley, the middle app compression kind of thing. Yep. It's everywhere, and you don't even think about it. And it was maintained by just one person, like a lot of projects are, for like a decade. Yeah. And somebody else just showed up and started helping. And they were like fixing bugs, doing good stuff, cleaning up the old code nobody else got around to for like a year or two. And then the original person was like, you know what? I've been doing this for a long time. You're doing a good job. Why don't you just take over? And the original person just kind of left. And then 3 months later, this malware gets slipped in that was incredibly sophisticated. Wow. And it turned out it wasn't even a real person. It was just like a made up name on an email list.
The name was Gia Tan.
Yeah, Gia Tan. That's not even a real person. Like there are people with that name, and they had a terrible week getting harassed. But none of those were that Gia Tan. And it was luckily detected at the last minute, and it was a really close call. But that's not the first time that's happened, I'm sure. It's just the first time we've noticed, and that's definitely not the last time that type of thing is going to happen. Yeah. It's about trust in the end. You have to trust the people that are doing this, and you don't know if they're a nice person on the internet. What's that old meme? You don't know if someone on the internet is a dog, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
No one, on the internet, no one knows you're a dog.
Yeah, a dog, Russian or North Korean hacker. Nobody on the internet knows these things. So it's kind of related to what we do. But like it's a hard one. It's impossible to solve unless you know the identity of every single person and know their entire life history.
Yeah, this is somewhat related. I can imagine there's a world where this is handled by the government, and if there's critical software that's identified, it's like, we're going to find this person and verify who they are and basically do a background check. On the other side, the more futuristic Silicon Valley tech approach might be, hey, we have incredible software LLMs. We have AI agents. What if we just run an LLM over every piece of public code constantly, review every Git push or every pull request, right? How are AI agents effective? Is it just going to be like a Cold War of both sides using AI to sneak ever more complex hacks in and catch them? Is it cat and mouse? How are you seeing AI and AI agents helping or hurting in the future?
I'm scanning the internet right now while we're talking. Yeah, I'm vibe scanning the internet.
Let's go.
Yeah, no, it's an arms race like everything in security. Attackers get better, they move around, find different ways in, and defenders have to keep up. Right now, I think we're losing that war. Right, we're getting a lot better at finding vulnerabilities in software and finding ways to exploit than we are at keeping up with that. I hope that changes. AI adoption in security has been pretty slow, and for a good reason. It's kind of scary. You don't want to just run these things with direct access to all of your systems, but attackers aren't slowed down by that. They're running this stuff every day and every week as it changes. So it's going to be a kind of wake up call and catch up period as the defenders figure out how to use it as well as the attackers are.
What's the vibe in the security community right now? Is it? I remember I like accidentally landed in Vegas during DEF CON or Black Hat and was kind of out of my element one year. But what does it take for someone to break into the industry? Where are the key pipelines? Are people even are universities relevant here anymore? I know there's a lot of hackers that just kind of do CTFs and then become famous. But what are the typical pipelines into either a career at your company or just the industry broadly?
Yeah, security is both really easy to break into and hard at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, universities aren't terribly relevant. There's no, college that you get a degree in cybersecurity from. Even programming in general, right? You can learn this stuff on your own. I learned it on my own. I did mechanical engineering. I never took a programming class. But it's also hard because there's so much esoteric stuff. Like there is no curriculum. You kind of just have to spend all that time on those forums and reading Hacker News and reading all these different sources. So I'd say there's not a lot of credentialism, but there is still this like kind of obscure dark knowledge base that you do kind of have to pick up on your own. But it is incredibly welcoming. Hopefully you had a good experience when you landed there in the desert at DEF CON. It's always a fun crowd.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Vegas,
it's way more fun than RSA.
You never know what you're going to get in Vegas. It might be the plumbers, annual conference or an arms dealer conference or Black Hats.
It's always different. But yeah, I remember people were joking like, oh, like don't even go near the DEF CON folks. Like they'll hack your phone in 2 seconds while you're not even looking.
No one takes a shower. Yeah.
That too. Yeah. So what's next for the company? I mean, you have a new war chest. You mentioned hiring salespeople, scaling that up. What are the new challenges? What are the goals for the coming 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, we're trying to be the safe source for all open source. Up until today, it's been pretty limited with just our container images. We're adding new products. We just announced a month or two ago. Virtual machines, language level libraries. We've really just on the tip of the iceberg when it comes to open source. So we're scaling up our investments a lot in R&D, our automation, making this stuff easier for us to do as we continue to grow and scale. The amount of open source that we have. It's moving even faster. You asked about this about AI. Open source is accelerating.
Yeah.
You can crank out code even faster now.
Totally.
Today it's more people writing more code. All code has bugs. We haven't really made an improvement dramatically that way in the number of bugs per line of code written. In fact, it'll probably go up as more inexperienced people start writing more and more of this. So the security gap is getting wider and we have to get even faster at it.
Yep, that makes sense. One more question on AI, and we'll let you get out of here. Dario over at Anthropic just published a piece, The Urgency of Interpretability. Jordy and I were talking a few months ago about DeepSeek and this idea that even if it's open source, there could potentially, it's a little sci-fi, but there could potentially be a Manchurian candidate buried in the weights of one of those models. Yeah. Is that something you're thinking about? Is this pure sci-fi? Is this a year, 2, 5, 10 out? How should we think about auditing the output of open source LLMs? Because that seems like a really valuable target if I'm a hacker.
Yeah, I've seen studies, not even just recently, in the last couple of years, where if you could taint a percentage of the training data going into a model, you can control some of the output.
Yep.
This stuff is not possible to reverse engineer. Totally. Code is hard enough to reverse engineer, and this is that scaled up by like 1,000x.
Yeah.
Open source models, there is an open source definition for models and these weights, but you can read source code. It's hard, but you can't read these ones and zeros in a 40 gigabyte file. It would not shock me if it's in there, and not even just DeepSeek in any of these models intentionally or intentionally.
Yep.
We like to think that we can review stuff line by line and catch these bugs, but there's no possible way to do that with LLMs. The whole explainability piece is scary.
Totally. Well, thank you so much for stopping by.
Yeah,
we have to cut it short because we have to run to a meeting, but this was fantastic. We'd love to have you back on the show whenever. Hopefully there's never a big security incident, but if there is one, we'll be calling you.
And we'll be playing this sound effect.
Oh, no.
You know where to find me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on.
Good luck.
Have a
getting
great
to that
weekend.
meeting.
Yeah,
Cheers.
we'll talk to you later. Bye.
See you, Dan.